A man with poor anger control turns into a green monster whenever he gets miffed, peeved, upset, outraged, put out, stubs a toe, or, is shot.
You really don't want to make me angry, and I really don't want to make you angry.
It sounds like a premise for a cheesy TV show based on a comic book, but this turned out very differently. A nuanced, sensitive human drama about a guy who turns into a green rage monster whenever he gets miffed, peeved, upset, etc. The Incredible Hulk.
Now look at these lines. The intelligence level drops. The primitive emotions take over the brain and the body.
The Marvel Comics character the Hulk, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, first appeared in comic book form with The Incredible Hulk #1 in 1962. The Hulk is a take on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, with Dr. Robert Bruce Banner exposed to a dose of gamma rays that's somewhere between benign and bang, you're fried. Triggered by anger, Dr. Banner metamorphoses into a giant creature driven by instinctual rage, like a toddler asked to wait 30 minutes for dinner.
And that is just what this creature is like. It's like a primitive. It's like a childish subhuman.
Producer Kenneth Johnson had been a writer and producer on The $6 Million Man, where he created the character of the Bionic Woman for a two-parter. The character of Jamie Summers was so successful, she was brought back from the dead and spun off into her own series, The Bionic Woman, with Johnson as showrunner. Universal Studios had made a deal with Marvel where they had the rights to 5 of Marvel's characters. After The Bionic Woman had ended, Johnson was asked which character he wanted to develop as a series, a question that made him think, what's the nicest way of saying none of the above? Having already worked on 2 superhero shows, Johnson did not want to write a tacky show about somebody in a cheesy costume. However, there was just something about the Hulk that intrigued him. Johnson was inspired by Les Miserables, feeling the obsessive hunt for one character by another might provide a framework for the series. There was also the duality of the Jekyll and Hyde aspect to the source material. Now that he was on board, Johnson had some thoughts about the actual Hulk. He hated the idea of a green Hulk and wanted a more human colour, perhaps reddish, but Stan Lee wouldn't budge. Johnson himself said he wanted to change the name of Bruce Banner to something else, thinking how cheesy he thought the alliterative names in comic books were: Peter Parker, Lois Lane, Lex Luthor, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, etc. And then he cast actor Bill Bixby as David Banner.
His name was Dr. David Banner.
There's also an alternate school of thought along the lines where CBS thought the name Bruce wasn't butch enough. Maybe so if you exclude Bruce's Lee, Springsteen, Campbell, Boxleitner, Dern, Willis, and the dozens of American sports personalities I found on the website whatthebruce.com.
But what?
CBS initially ordered 2 telemovies, with the first setting up the idea of the Hulk and a second to flesh out what a typical story might look like. David Banner wanders into a new situation, makes a friend but also an enemy. Some people, thinking Banner is a pushover, throw him to the ground or out of shot preferably, and the Hulk appears, with none of them ever making the link between Banner and the Green Giant. Comic book stories where dual or secret identities were a part of the deal always involved a degree of bullshit swallowing. Holy shit, there's this big green dude who just came out of the room where we just threw that skinny guy into. I'm sure it's just a huge coincidence. The first 2 telemovies were broadcast in late 1977, with a weekly series following from early 1978. David Banner was a scientist researching ways to tap into latent human strength. His research has seen other people in similar circumstances finding superhuman strength in times of crisis. He's more than a little annoyed and guilty that he wasn't able to find that sort of strength to save his late wife after a car crash. It's turned into an obsession, but rather than just buy a bottle of Calvin Klein, he subjects himself to a ridiculously high dose of gamma radiation. At first he thinks nothing's happened, but before he's had a chance to order a joke t-shirt,
oh, terrific,
while trying to change a tyre in the rain, gets all sorts of pissed off. He tries to research his transformation with the help of colleague Elena Marks, but things don't go so well. An investigative reporter from the tabloid The National Register is looking into reports of a hulking creature.
Your friend Wouldn't take a shoe about this size, would he, Doctor?
Jack McGee's first encounter with the Green Menace sets him on an obsessive cross-country chase looking to any sighting of the creature he dubs the Incredible Hulk.
Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
David Banner was thought to be killed, so the scientist travels the country incognito, looking for ways to treat or at least manage his condition, whether it be medically, psychologically, or spiritually. Banner would use various pseudonyms as he hitchhiked his way across the country. He'll quite easily land an entry-level job that he's totally overqualified to do, yet he couldn't prove that he was overqualified since he had no references.
You figure out a way to get our liquor license, you straighten out our books. I love brainy dishwashers.
These days, imagine getting a job or an apartment without either. David Bernard rented an apartment from me for 3 months in the summer of 1979. He was a quiet tenant who caused no trouble. That is, up until the time when one of his friends showed up, painted himself green all over, and busted up the joint. And Bernard left town very suddenly. Punk owed me a week's rent. Banner tried to avoid all contact with police, and he also had to deal with his shadow McGee suddenly turning up, often picking up his bag and leaving town immediately. David Banner is a man on a quest, but one who's probably never gotten back his security deposit.
That'll be $100, please.
This morning it was 75.
Well, that was this morning.
The few times Banner has ID, it's in the name of this week's assumed pseudonym. I can't imagine having a fake ID for each new name would be cheap. Over 80 or so episodes, that's a lot of fake IDs. You think having 3 Gmail accounts is bad, imagine this guy.
David Burns. David Becker. David Blaine. I'm David Bernard.
David Brown?
David Bannister, I'm just helping out.
And of course, along the way, he would get involved in helping others. There would be a person who had a problem that would come to like David, but then there'd also be someone to escalate a confrontation to a physical level, which of course would lead to a Hulk out. Congratulations guys, you played yourselves. You brought a thug to a Hulk fight, but it's a fight where almost no one ever sees the transformation and is able to link the Hulk to Banner. There's also a second, bigger Hulk out at the end of the show that also somehow conveniently resolves any personal issues. There were generally 2 Hulk outs an episode, with later seasons occasionally using the earlier appearance as an excuse for either comic relief or to give the Hulk a sensitive moment. David Banner was someone who had to help. He was a nice guy. He was very obliging. He would give you the shirt off his back. Okay, it might be a little torn and ripped, but it was yours, if, say, you needed some rags to clean paintbrushes.
What's the matter? Will you get in? That creature attack you too?
I had an attack, yes.
The Hulk was the result of David Banner's rage, and as the Hulk he was able to channel that energy towards this week's evildoers but not hurt those that David cared for. Banner had no memory of what happened during a Hulk out and was often concerned about people being hurt by the Hulk.
No, don't eat the bottle!
Hulk would smash through walls, break things, tip things over, and throw guys across the room, all in a slow motion action sequence. The Hulk never hit anyone, but was very big on smashing, pushing, lifting, and throwing things and or people. Of course, throwing somebody across a room with such force isn't really going to do their bones any favours.
Oh, I landed on my keys!
The transformation between Banner and the Hulk would change over the course of the series. They'd almost all begin with Bixby glaring at the camera with his white contact lenses. Then the clothes would rip and we'd see Ferrigno. Early on, some transformations used intermediate stages by putting Bixby in half Hulk makeup, and at other times a slow dissolve would be used. Even at the time, Johnson knew some of these methods weren't particularly convincing, which is why the show would ditch the complicated stuff as much as possible. The triggers for Hulk outs could often be amusing due to Banner's amazingly low pain threshold. A modern Hulk series could see Hulk outs triggered by things like poor phone reception, a KFC drive-thru order that was missing fries, and of course,
Unexpected item in the bagging area.
Sam Hedren's modern formula provides fast, effective relief from pain of headache, cold, or minor arthritic discomfort.
Bill Bixby had already headlined several series beginning with comedies My Favorite Martian and The Courtship of Eddie's Father, as well as a short-lived adventure series in the early 70s, The Magician. He'd been an in-demand actor for a while, and when he took on the role of David Banner, he brought a sensitivity to the role that was rarely seen in the lead roles for action-adventure series of the time. Like Johnson, he wasn't keen on the idea of a superhero story, but liked the pilot script so much he said he'd do it on the condition that Johnson stay with the show for as long as Bixby did. During the show's run, Bixby channeled his personal anguish into the character. His marriage to actress Brenda Benet ended acrimoniously, but to show their young son that the couple could still function around each other, Benet appeared in an excellent third season episode, The Psychic, a curiously dark episode where in one scene Banner wants to kill himself. Tragically, the pair's young son died in an accident not long after, and Benet would later take her own life. Bixby threw himself into his work as a way to manage his private turmoil. Bill Bixby had already directed a number of television shows before the series. He would direct one episode of the show and become a producer and director of the late 80s Hulk TV movies.
David. Benson.
Bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno was not the first choice to play Banner's alter ego. Richard Kiel was originally cast as they wanted an actor, but while he had the height, he didn't have the physique they thought the Hulk needed. Ferrigno was brought in and instantly became associated with the role. For obvious reasons, Ferrigno and Bixby did not appear together in many scenes, once as metaphorical imagery in Banner's mind, and once in the fourth season when Ferrigno played a bodybuilder and the Hulk in the same episode. Ferrigno was also severely deaf, which presented a few challenges when shooting action scenes. He was also not an actor before starting work on the series, but quickly grew into the role. You might think all he needs to do is snarl and flex his muscles, but there are moments where the Hulk's childlike wonder comes into play, and Ferrigno really does sell that. In other media, Hulk has a limited monosyllabic vocabulary, like a moron repeating out loud every third word from the abridged children's version of Ready Player One. In the series, Hulk doesn't speak at all, possibly because he has nothing much to say, or maybe he just feels his work speaks for itself. Jack Colvin was a contract player at Universal. He had appeared in various roles in many of Universal's factory-produced series of the 70s and proved to be excellent as the dogged reporter Jack McGee.
You're talking about the biggest story in newspaper history. They're worried about a few cheesy bucks.
Some episodes would only have a scene or two with McGee just to complicate Banner's life, and others didn't feature him at all.
You don't understand. That man on the boat, the one with Wallace, that's the creature, that's the Hulk.
Colvin would occasionally feature heavily in episodes looking at McGee's obsession. Of course, believing Banner was dead, the occasional scenes between Bixby and Colvin were structured in a way that the two never came face to face.
End of series.
So The Incredible Hulk was a show where the main star could not actually interact much with his co-stars on screen. It does sound a bit like Christmas Dinner 2008, when Auntie Beryl insisted on bringing her pet pot-bellied pig along and suddenly everybody felt like salad.
It is a man who metamorphosizes into something superhuman. Jekyll and Hyde. Only not fiction.
It's sort of interesting that at no point does a government agency ever decide to investigate the Hulk or capture him to study with a view to weaponizing him. Apart from that one time, they mistook him for an alien at a meteor crash site and then promptly forgot about him, as one would forget about that chewing gum under the dining table. Despite hundreds of potential witnesses and McGee's paper offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the Hulk's capture, McGee is pretty much the only person chasing Banner. McGee's paper, the National Register, is mostly derided as a tabloid, so their stories about the Hulk are rated about as highly as a fallout shelter with a sunroof.
Your newspaper is only interested in reporting murder, rape, horoscopes, UFOs, and Farrah Fawcett. I don't happen to fit into any of those categories.
McGee himself starts the series wanting to bring the Hulk to justice, mainly because he saw it as the story of a lifetime, but he would soften his stance about killing the creature, thanks to the Hulk saving McGee's life on more than one occasion.
Why do you want the Hulk so badly?
It's the biggest story of the 20th century. You could pick up a Pulitzer for journalism. More important, I could get off of the register. I could stop banging out pap for the supermarket masses.
The Hulk comic had a huge cast of characters, all of whom are ignored in the series in favor of the core of Banner, the Hulk, and his created-for-television shadow, McGee.
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have.
The opening narration was provided by Ted Cassidy, who'd previously been used by Johnson as Bigfoot in The $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman. Cassidy also provided the Hulk's growls in early episodes. After Cassidy's premature death, the narration was kept throughout the show's run, and the Hulk's vocalizations were then performed by actor Charles Napier. The Incredible Hulk series was unique for its time. When you compare it to some of the other attempts to translate comic book characters to the small screen, Hulk doesn't feel like a series dumbed down for kids. In fact, I could imagine a child being bored rigid by a lot of what came in between the Hulk outs. Back in the day, I often watched The Hulk, but I wasn't hugely keen on it. As an adult, Hulk has held up much better than a lot of the shows covered on this channel. The reason, even when the plots weren't amazing, the writing, the acting and the production were almost always top caliber. One pivotal element of the show's feel is the score by frequent Johnson collaborator Joe Harnell. His theme tune, The Lonely Man, became iconic for a reason, used throughout the series as a solo piano piece or as part of a big orchestra or even a disco version. Disco does of course date the show, but not as badly as Bill Bixby's amazingly flared trousers. You know what else was flared? Lou Ferrigno's nostrils as the Hulk. But that never goes out of style. Also, he's really big, don't hurt me. Despite good ongoing ratings, The Hulk was cancelled by CBS in 1982 with only 7 episodes filmed for a 5th season. That would suddenly be curtailed. Bill Bixby's reaction? Apparently, a management change at CBS saw Hulk cancelled almost on a whim. After 80 or so episodes, Hulk was smashed. In 1988, the first of 3 Incredible Hulk TV movies reunited Bixby and Ferrigno and was broadcast on NBC. We'll cover them in detail in a later video, but briefly, The Incredible Hulk Returns, The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and The Death of the Incredible Hulk brought back the main cast, ripped a few more shirts, and sort of wrapped up the character arc of David Banner.
I really have to buy shirts that stretch.
Often the Incredible Hulk fell into a sort of a formula. Banner had a job in some industry, happened across some shenanigans involving mobsters or a toxic family member. Banner, working in a department store, comes across some thieves trying to break into the vault. Banner, working as a caretaker, a groundsman or a janitor, happens on a kid with a deadbeat parent or a violent dad, or kids experiencing peer pressure, and after Banner calls someone out on their appalling behaviour, somehow a Hulk out fixes it. Like the wife beater who goes to hospital for a few weeks and is somehow cured.
Jack will be home from the hospital in less than a month. We'll be fine.
Some of the episode endings were just a little bit too convenient, a bit like having a toilet in your office cubicle. Even with the more formulaic episodes, The Incredible Hulk was almost always intensely entertaining, and not just for an audience of kids. Producer Kenneth Johnson often says the largest demographic of viewers was adult women, then men, then teens, and then the kids. Writing stories that adults could relate to made a big difference over an assumption that everyone watching was 10. The kids watched for the Hulk outs, and the adults watched Banner tying himself into knots trying to help others while searching for his cure, but also avoiding McGee. Behind you, behind you.
Please deposit 25 cents for the first 3 minutes.
I don't have 25 cents!
The very best episodes of The Hulk are often those that were written by the show's creator, Kenneth Johnson. The first TV movie, quite unlike the rest of the series, shows us flashbacks of David Banner's life with his late wife before she died in the car accident, and in that pilot, Banner's short fuse is exaggerated to the point where a hangnail might set him off. His relationship with colleague Elena Marks is touching in that there are feelings between the two that go unmentioned. Well, unmentioned when he wasn't the Hulk or she was still breathing. The Season 2 opener, Married, saw David Banner in Hawaii, where he sought out a terminally ill doctor who might be able to help him, just as he might be able to help treat her condition. But they're unable to save her, and she dies in the arms of the Hulk. Mariette Hartley won an Emmy for her performance in the episode.
To have and to hold, from this day forward.
For richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health.
The Psychic starred Bixby's estranged wife Brenda Benet and contains a number of powerful moments.
Day by day, the creature has been destroying me. David Banner is dead.
The Snare was a take on the incredibly well-worn premise of The Most Dangerous Game, which was the trope of a bored hunter who instead hunts man. Having lured Banner to his private island, Bradford Dillman's character is overjoyed to find Banner is also the Hulk.
It was magnificent, David, magnificent!
Homecoming saw Banner return home to see his father and his sister.
David, you're alive!
It's a lovely episode, made slightly disappointing by how not pissed off they are. Sure, you're happy he's alive, but he was fine to let you think he was dead for a few years. Also, now he can repay the $50 he owes you and be your alibi for those mysterious arson attacks. Mystery Man saw a wounded and amnesiac David Banner trapped in the woods with McGee. Having escaped a plane crash, they now have to escape a forest fire. It's a great character piece that humanises McGee, but man is he dumb, never twigging that Banner's alive.
What do you want me to do, John? Find the Hulk and walk away? You're kidding!
Interview with the Hulk saw one of McGee's colleagues scoring an interview with Banner.
You're Dr. David Banner.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are.
Banner relents and finds the process of unloading very healing.
This has been, bottled up inside me for such a long time.
One episode had Bixby playing a dual role of a gangster who looked exactly like Banner, and another show had a failed treatment for hulking out turn Banner evil for a spell.
Is there anything strange?
Bring Me the Head of the Hulk featured a rival newspaper sponsoring an assassin to take out the creature. There are also cute episodes, such as the one reuniting Bixby with his co-stars from previous series, or silly but brilliant ideas of the Hulk landing a 747 or running amok in Times Square. One of the weirdest episodes saw David Banner hanging out with an ex-con man. Banner wins the lottery but can't collect, so he sends the ex-con man to collect the winnings, who, surprise surprise, then absconds with them and uses the funds to set up a huge grift that gets out of hand.
Damn, I broke a nail.
The first saw the Hulk face off against another creature who'd been around since the 50s. This time, the human alter ego likes the power that comes with hulking out and isn't about to let Banner cure him.
30 years of feeling sick and weak and hurting. I'm not going back, Doctor.
Throughout the show's run, Banner comes close to finding a cure or a treatment for his condition, but fate has a way of denying him.
Well, we always knew it was a long shot, didn't we?
The Hulk curse will always be with him, like that tattoo on your back that you think is of a dragon, but everyone's too polite to tell you it's actually Ralph Malph. Possibly the best episode of the entire run was the two-part episode that opened the 4th season, Prometheus.
It's almost like the thing was being piloted.
Prometheus was about a meteor about to hit Earth, just where Banner happens to be helping out a blind woman. After hulking out, he's mistaken for an alien and abducted by the government in an episode that's part Andromeda Strain and part Close Encounters of the Third Kind, if either of them featured a giant green rage monster. For part of the episode, gamma rays emitted from the meteor have trapped Banner halfway between his human state and the Hulk.
But you... what's happened to you?
I don't know.
Bixby did not like appearing without his shirt, so in long shots they cut to wrestler Rick Drazen, whose physique was halfway between that of Bixby and Ferrigno.
You think the creature is extraterrestrial?
It's very possible, John. Wait until you see the tapes.
These episodes, to me anyway, really elevated a show that for much of the time clung to a formula, just like Kate Winslet clinging to a large door. Tried to do jumping jacks and you forgot there was a ceiling fan. Despite the Hulk's incredible success, the series never managed to produce a spin-off, but it wasn't for lack of trying. In The Incredible Hulk's 2nd season, there was an episode featuring a little less Bixby than normal that would serve as a backdoor pilot, focusing on a cop played by Rick Springfield who would become a martial arts expert. Marvel Comics was wary of Universal creating its own Hulk spin-off, where Marvel might not control the rights. So they got in first and created She-Hulk. Later, Bixby and Ferrigno Hulk projects would involve piloting spin-offs for Thor, Daredevil and She-Hulk, though only the first two were completed.
Okay, now I need an ambulance.
Bixby also hated the contact lenses used at the start of the Hulkouts, which does seem an obvious statement unless there's some sort of contact lens fetish I'm not aware of.
You don't look like the moving man type.
Oh. Well, believe me, I'm stronger than I look.
There were more than a few extended flashback scenes throughout the series, and a few episodes that were a sparrow's poop away from being a clip show. One way the series balanced the budget was to make copious use of stock footage from movies, and if they were from Universal Studios, then that helped the budget even more. Sometimes the available footage or leftover sets on the Universal lot inspired storylines. Universal has a plane interior from the airport films? Sure, write an episode about the Hulk on a 747. The episode Earthquakes Happen took footage from the 1974 disaster film Earthquake. Or there's an episode about truckers using clips from Steven Spielberg's telemovie Duel, which was something the director took exception to. Kicked your knee into the side of the desk. Hulk had its fair share of familiar faces, some who would go on to find fame in other roles later on, and of course some people who were just in absolutely everything at the time. Where's Lance? Oh, there he is. In general, the Hulk stuck to casting reliable actors rather than going down the path of stunt casting. Incredible Hulk casting directors also had a habit of bringing back character actors to play completely different roles.
Don't you?
Post-Hulk, Johnson went on to create V, directed a lot of other people's shows, and later handled the TV version of Alienation. Bixby moved more into directing.
He once busted my mother for tearing tags off of mattresses.
Jack Colvin became a respected acting teacher, and Ferrigno did roles here and there, a few Italian fantasy films, and was on hand for cameos and voice work in later Hulk projects. In 2003, director Ang Lee brought us the first big screen version of the Hulk, played by Eric Bana, and in 2008 we had a one-off version with Edward Norton as Bruce Banner, which he made as a contractual obligation. The character of Banner was later taken over by Mark Ruffalo, where he appeared in the mega-successful Avengers films. Stepped on Lego while barefoot.
Wasn't he wonderful? He was perfect.
The TV version of The Incredible Hulk is a superior example of late 70s and early 80s action-adventure series. It also has a lot of heart and emotion. Generally, there weren't too many shows like The Incredible Hulk. One of the few that I can think of off the top of my head would be something like Quantum Leap. The cast were hard to top, and for a long time the image of a green Lou Ferrigno was the image a non-comic book reader would have visualized if you mentioned The Incredible Hulk. Bill Bixby brought a humanity to a genre that was more known for whiz-bang action than emotion. His David Banner was vulnerable, empathetic, and understanding. And then when he got really pissed off, he turned into a giant green squashing, smashing machine. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You wouldn't like me if you weren't subscribed.
Car, you're making me angry. Now, if you get me angry, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn you into a tin sandwich.